Come on. Where's the sound? Oh, here we go.
Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 143 of The Joy of Coding, starting a little bit late today. I really apologize for people who showed up at 1 o'clock, the allotted time, and didn't see me right away. Instead, they saw the splash. We're starting about 10 minutes late today. I really apologize. Stuff got in the way, and I was scrambling to set up, and enough excuses. Let's get down to business. Let me show you my screen. Right. Whoopsie daisy. I think I'm showing you the wrong desktop. You're seeing what I normally see. Come on. That's not what I wanted. What I want to do is just capture the other display, yo. Display. That's the one. Booyah. Now we're back in business. Sorry about that. As you can tell, I'm a little bit behind. Things are just a little awry. But here we go. Let's dive into it. Today is June 27th. 2018, episode 143. If it's not immediately obvious, no plan survives breakfast. Things might go wrong during this live stream. Things might not work correctly. I'm sitting in the wrong kind of chair, for example. The sounds might not work immediately, but eventually they do. We'll see what we can do. This agenda that we're looking at is something that you can click on. It's something available to you. I wanted you to know you can get access to it. If you have if you're watching this on YouTube, check out the video description down below. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, it's in the handouts section, which should be on either side of the screen here. And if you're watching this on the old Air Mozilla somehow, it's in the additional links section down below. And if you're watching this on Twitch, you Twitch people without your ability for me to send you links properly, I'm going to drop it into the Twitch chat. Here's the agenda. Boom, hang on. There you go. There's the link to the agenda. Also, there's a link to rate the episode. Let me know what you thought. I know it started a little bit late. Please don't hold that against me. And I dropped the link to that in the Twitch chat. Now my throat's starting to act up. So a quick self-check. Is everything working? Can you hear me? Yes. Can I play sounds? Kind of. Is the recording on? Yes. All right. So we're in okay shape. I want to start this episode 143 and give a quick shout out to Annie. Annie is an intern working in the on the DOM team. She's working on the DOM clipboard API. Specifically, she's working on the async variant of the DOM clipboard API. I'm not sure if she's watching this episode or will be watching this episode, but just in case, she asked for a shout out. So there's your shout out, Annie. Keep up the good work. So what I was hoping to do today is do some reviews. My review queue has gotten quite long, and it is time for me to do something about it. So we'll be reviewing some patches. Let's take a look at what sorts of things we could be reviewing today. For some reason, everything is pretty sluggish. Not just Wacky Morning DJ, but everything on this machine is really sluggish. So I'm going to pull up Activity Monitor to see if I can understand. OBS and Windows Server are doing a lot. Interesting. OBS, calm down. Calm down, OBS. It's using a lot of my CPU right now. But this is what we're hoping to review, what I'm hoping we can review today. This is a set of patches for my intern, Jay. So shout out to Jay as well. So Jay has two things in flight. The first thing is we're moving Activity Stream into running into its own content process, which has some nice security, but more importantly for me, performance characteristics for doing that. So that'll be nice. And dependent upon that work is this work, which is to modify the Script Preloader. If you're not familiar with the Script Preloader, I actually have an article on my blog that you can check out at mikeconley.ca. Where I think the first article you'll find here talks about what Script Preloader is. So I'm actually going to put a link to that in the in the agenda. So for you folks, if you want to read up on, whoops, please ignore that. If you want to read up on what Script Preloader is, here, Script Preloader primer. There's a link in the agenda. So let me sync that up. You can reload your agendas if you want to check out that link right now. Wow. What are you doing? Everything's behaving pretty sluggishly right now. OBS. It's OBS. 300% of my CPU. What the dealio? Well, hopefully that doesn't end up making this episode unusable. It seems to be okay for now. Let's keep going. So essentially, Jay is trying to make it so that the Script Preloader caches a bunch of the activity stream scripts. That's his goal. So he's got a stack of patches here. Some of them have review requested, some of them don't. A bunch of them have issues. He was getting Chris Maglione to review a bunch of them. He's got me reviewing 2 of them. So normally what I do, I mean, I'm familiar with what Jay is trying to do here, but I want to get a clearer sense of the entire system of patches. So what I'm going to do is actually go through, I'm not going to review it, but I'm going to go through each of the patches here and try and understand what exactly it is he's doing and why. So and that way I can get a clearer sense of how the things that I am supposed to review are related. So first thing he does is he adds a new process type to the Script Preloader. The Script Preloader differentiates between different process types, and he's adding an uninitialized one here. And that means type files means something different. You should update script cache 2 and add an assertion when decoding that we never decode this value. Is this change really necessary though? What is script cache.py? That KMag is referring to. Oh, it allows you to like decode the startup script cache. That's handy. That's really handy. I didn't realize that. Wow, yeah, I did not realize that utility existed. So Jay explains that he needs this change because the process type is initialization is delayed, and it would default to the parent process, and he thinks that's an issue. So I'll let him work that out with Chris Maglione, and we'll move on. Why is it not ready yet? We shouldn't instantiate the child preloader until after we get receive set remote type. The existing extension process code already depends on this. I'd rather we assert that in that delay instantiating the remote type. Interesting. It does not seem to be that case when I attempted to log such and such about the script preloader, and the form shows an empty string, whereas the latter returns a value. Web preloader. It seems that the script preloader for the child was received before receive set remote type, and hence the empty string. If we were to rely on the existing code, S process type for the child will always be web, and we won't be able to add an observer for a different topic when it comes to S process type is privileged. So I think he has to work something out here with Chris Maglione in terms of the lifetime. But assuming that let's assume that gets all worked out, that they figure out the lifetime, the process types, and that we have like our special privileged about process type. So what he's doing now is he's adding a script to the process, the content process script. So let's take a look at this. This only runs if we're running in the content process, in a content process. And G in content process only runs if the process type is of process type content. Now that's interesting because does the Zool runtime also know about process type web? Process type, like Process type plugin content, GPU, PDFEM, plugin. Interesting. So like get process type. How does that work in the app runner? It's XRE get process type, and that forwards to here. S child process type, which is in here it's process type default. In other places, oh, we're going to set the process type based on a string. And it's going to test them against the K process type string. And set process type is called by here inside Bootstrap, or rather here. Who calls it? In plugin container, I see it's part of the system argument, like the arguments that we pass to the command line. Got it. So it should still be the content process type. I'm pretty sure. If we take a look at the process types I have right now, and then we look at like plugin container. I've got plugin container, and then I think there's like a what is it? Arg C. Content process main. It's like the last argument. The last argument. Let me reduce the size of my. Right, so they're all like tab, 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 plugin, tab, tab. And for the web extension process, which one's the web? Like, because that's like, it's a good example of like a sub process that I don't see listed inside the list of processes that that we can set the type of 68441. 68441, it's of type tab. Okay, so what I've learned from this is that the Gecko, the web extension content process is of type tab, and it's okay that the privileged about process that Jay is adding is also of type about tab, or is of type tab. And I think that's okay. So it should be the case that G in content process is true. It will be of process type content, and we should enter this block. Okay. That's useful. And then it does a bunch of stuff, like it's adding, we're adding a new thing that we're listening for, content document global created. And in content document, he's waiting for a global to be created, and then he waits for the load event on that content document global. Interesting. So what he's doing is he's making it so as soon as we load the first page, we'll fire this notification. Let's see what other, make sure that there are no pre-existing notifications that we could use instead. Notify. Global window outer. Notify observers. Okay. Page info, home pane loaded. Main pane load, that's for preferences. Let's see, block list. Database is loaded. Dispatch content loaded events. Chrome document interactive. So I wonder if this is better. Dispatch content loaded events. When does that fire normally? DOM content loaded. Dispatch to block on load. And then dispatch page transition. So what I'm thinking is maybe instead of like waiting for an earlier notification and that notification then sends an event listener, is if we can wait for a later event, a later notification. In this case, the content document interactive notification might be better. Let's see if we can find a list somewhere. Content document interactive. Document ready state. Unfortunately, a lot of our observer notifications aren't like really well documented. There's no like central list. Here we go, browser state notifications. There's some tests here. Document is interactive. Content document loaded. What's this one? Content document loaded. This might be the best one of all. Content document loaded. Instead of adding an observer for content for when the global is created and then listening for a load event, we might be able to find a later notification that's good enough. For example, there is content document loaded that is late enough for our purposes. For example, there is content document loaded, which is fired here. Hello. Thank you very much. Wow, that's service. Hey, everybody. Hey, come on back in here, Overholt. Overholt, come say hi. Everybody, this is Andrew Overholt. He's a manager here on the DOM team. Yeah, he's just going to dip his head in. That's service. Look at this. This is takeout lunch. Suddenly brought into this meeting room. Thank you very much, Overholt. Appreciate it. Lunch. I'm hungry, but I'm on a roll. Which is fired here. Content document loaded is fired here. And then I was going to give him a link. Yeah. So I'll give him a permalink. Which, now that I think about it, might be analogous to page content fully loaded. So instead of adding a new notification called page content fully loaded, can we have Script Preloader listen for content document loaded instead? Can we, I used instead twice. That way we can remove all of this. Alright. I think that's pretty clear. So I like how this is a very simple, small patch. But now that I've thought about it and I've added this comment, I'm pretty certain we can get away with taking this patch out and then just updating a later patch in the series so that instead of waiting for page content fully loaded, he waits for, what was it? Content document loaded. Is content document loaded fired for the for about blank? It probably is. D. So maybe I need to add, like, if we go that route, we'll likely need to update Script Preloader to ignore content fully loaded if the document location is about blank. Okay, so I'm going to minus this and post that for review. Post my review. Good stuff. All right, let's move on. Now this next one I think is like the real guts of the patch. Make the script preloader wait for that observer notification to fire before writing cache for privileged processes. So if the idea in my previous review holds, this should be, what was it? Content document loaded. And where does he add his observer? If process type is process type privileged, be safe and we increase the window in which the script preloader is active. Okay. And then what does he do here? I just store this in something like m content start finish doc when you create the observer and check that instead. If stir comp you're going to wind up doing extra stir comp here in debug builds where the Moz asserts aren't compiled. Also, if stir comp so he's saying KMag is suggesting instead of checking both of these, set it as a member variable. Ooh, should be, but only if the changes in previous review are accepted, right? Shouldn't this be included here? Otherwise, someone might make this change despite previous review being non-accepted. Should be. So the question from MC Iyer in IRC is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your IRC nick correctly, he goes, should be. Now let me bring this over. But only if the changes in previous review are accepted, right? Shouldn't this be included here? Otherwise, someone might make this change despite previous review being non-accepted. I guess that's a good point. This, and I didn't even English correctly here. I just said this content document loaded. If my idea in my if the idea in my previous review holds, this should be content document loaded. You're right, should be. And I'm reasonably certain that my idea will hold, but I could be wrong. You never know. Thank you for bringing that up and for pointing out the fact that. Thank you for bringing up the fact that I don't know if you were bringing it up, but like I missed some words in there. And KMag is right. We've got like these Moz asserts that aren't even going to be compiled, and we're doing an extra stir comp. Apparently, I said something different loudly. Am I too loud? I'll keep in mind. I haven't. So my lunch is sitting here. I haven't eaten it. I was in such a rush to get everything set up. I haven't eaten lunch. My blood sugar is in the tubes. Maybe this is not the best condition to be reviewing code in, but it is reality. And so I apologize if my ability to English and write at the same time are a little degraded. But hopefully I'm not like too loud for you. If my audio is too loud, let me know. Okay, apparently the audio is okay. Thank you for chiming in though. So I agree. These two asserts aren't being compiled. I agree. Perhaps this should be wrapped in an if-def debug pragma. If-def debug. Now, are these asserts valuable? What are they doing? He's asserting that. Yeah, I think those are valuable. I agree. Perhaps it should be wrapped in an if-def debug. Yeah, I stand by that. So I'll publish that reply, and then my review over here, I'll keep going. And then down here, when we initialize, that's when he's adding the observer. Since we know that the process is privileged, it will always be safe, and we can increase the window in which the script preloader is active. In the child process, we need to freeze the script cache for any untrusted code. It will always be safe is maybe a bit ambiguous. Perhaps we should say, since we control all of the documents loaded in the privileged content process, we can increase the window of active time for the preloader to include the scripts that are loaded until the first document completes. Something along those lines anyhow. Also, we should probably find a way of ensuring that the privileged content process doesn't ever load script off of the network. Does not ever load. Process never loads script off of the network. Loads, I maybe just say untrusted script. We should at the very least file a bug on that and look into what can be done. So I'm going to R-, because there's some issues there. And let's see, next patch, drop system principal if loading scripts in privileged content process. Drop system. This is interesting. This one I have less of an idea about what we need to do here. So he's in the subscript loader. Suppress caching if we're compiling his content or if we're loading a blob URI. So I guess the way he's doing the noting of scripts is by going through the subscript loader. And normally we ignore things that are going through the subscript loader if it's content, but here if we're not ignoring the cache, ignore caching the script does not have the system principal. However, this rule is dropped, we know that we're in the privileged content process. So system principal. process type is not the privilege type, then we check to ensure that it's of the system principal type. Otherwise, we may load, this isn't a good heuristic. We may still load remote pages in content process, and we definitely don't want to compile scripts for them. We should probably just check is system principal or is codebase principal, and mCodebase scheme is resource, or whatever codebase URL is used for our activity stream. It may be about home, about new tab. So it sounds like KMeg's on the case here. He knows what he's doing. And then there are some patches here that have already been reviewed in our plus. Kate reviewed this one where he's updating the about new tab service to pref new tab browser new tab page enabled. If I change, what is that? So he's adding an observer for the enabled state. For it's enabled or disabled. Add a preference observer for the enabled state. Why? All right. And then down here, he's adding a new one for the separate privileged content process. And if we get it, then what do we do? Is he sending this information down to the content process? If this privileged content process I'm a little confused here. Why does he need this? Observer. So it's just the state thing that exists on the about new tab service, but all right. And then this is whenever we do the injection. And when the document global is created. So when the document's created, we add DOM content loaded event listener. Do not inject scripts if we are not using the separate privileged content process, or if we do not need them. Topic, content document, created. When is this observer removed, out of curiosity? This observer removed. And so he adds a DOM content loaded event listener and then makes sure that we're loaded at the right page. If it is overridden by an extension, how did we get here? If we're, oh. I understand. We do want to continue running this in the case that, oh no, if do not inject scripts, you're not using a separate privileged content process. At this point, we know that we have that the separate privileged content process is being used, is enabled, and we're going to see if we're supposed to inject script. Shouldn't, maybe, is it not sufficient to bail, perhaps at this point we can bail out earlier if we know that our process type isn't the privileged content process. And if we are the privileged content process, if it is overridden by an extension, we check the URL to make sure that it's not activity stream or processing. If overridden, the path name does not include home or welcome. It's not overridden. Then activity stream must be enabled. No? If we are loading content in, well, privileged. If we are loading content, then activity stream must be enabled. No? I think that's true. I just feel like a lot of these things being checked here can be assumed based on the fact, based on certain behaviors can be assumed. Perhaps we should assert them. It can be assumed. Like if we got here and we're in the privileged content process, then we must be loading a page that can be, then we must be loading an about page. So those things. The subject is the new tab. For example, I don't think it should be possible to get here if the URL for activity for about new tab has been overridden. At least it certainly shouldn't be. Let's get here in the privileged process. It's been overridden. Debug string. Then we put that there, then we load the scripts. On DOM content loaded. So maybe instead of waiting for topic content document created, you could wait for, what was it? Content document interactive, which is fired when? Content document interactive. Which is fired just before the DOM content loaded event. Maybe that'll help avoid your leak issue too. Well, I don't know, because he's dealing with some leaks right now. Let's see what he thinks about that. Publish my review. And that's it. So I've reviewed a bunch of stuff. So reviewed Jay's patches. Those I wanted to review. And then a completely separate intern project that I was going to review. This is something having to do with theming the browser. So we want to make it so that themes can override the colors in the new tab page, and maybe even change the, not only the colors, but maybe even put an image for the new tab page, set the text color, that sort of thing. Maybe I should go back and read the state of the bug. And I did a review, and then he updated the patches, and they said, note to self, use cu.getWeakReference. Lightweight theme child listener.content. Tab content. So let's see what he did. Let's take a look at the patch. So there are, let's see here. He's changed a number of files here. Where should I start? Well, let's start at some of the build things. So like he's adding a new component here, lightweight theme child listener.jsm. Okay. These are the rules, the new rules that will support. We have a whitelist and he's adding them to the whitelist. Okay, that makes sense. I don't think these are supposed to be in any particular like alphabetical order or anything. Maybe they were at some point, but now they're definitely not in alphabetical order. Then he's got theme content property list and theme variable map. Right, that was something I had asked for. Receive message. If name equals lightweight theme request, we'll get the properties. So this is inside the lightweight theme consumer. If something has sent us a message, because we add a message listener to the entire window and say, you know, if anything is actually requesting information about the lightweight theme from the content. Oh, fellow Ella Orchard asks, oh hey, is this bug is relevant to my interests on Firefox Color. Hey, great. I'm glad to hear that. Hopefully we'll be able to support more things for color, like the new tab colors, and new tab variables, that sort of thing. So we wait for a message to come up. So the way this happens is every window can be themed separately. Every window can have like a different set of theme properties. So we don't have like a way of telling individual content processes, hey, here are the colors for the new tab page if you happen to load it. It's every browser in the window, regardless of which process they're running in, they have to request that information when they open up. They ask the parent, hey, let me know if there are like what the lightweight theme parameters are. And then they come back down as a lightweight theme update. So we get the properties, then we send an update. And whenever if it changes, if the theme data changes, then we send down another update message. We broadcast an update across all of our tabs. It's like, hey, here's an update. And this is doing the work of going through the list of properties in the theme, making sure that they're part of the whitelist, and then sanitizing them, parsing them properly, and then producing an object that we send down in our message. Okay. Content theme data. That makes sense. So that seems okay to me. That seems like a fine thing to do. Let's close this up. Now what do I want to look at? So here's what he added to the theme variable map. He's added these two new things to the whitelist of things that we accept inside the content process. That other whitelist is like, what are things that we allow in themes? And these are, what are the things that we allow inside the content process, like the content process when we're theming content. And it's these two things. So we have a couple layers of whitelists there. Here's how he's doing it for the new tab page in the dark theme. He's updating the built-in dark theme to update the background and text color. Great. And then what he's doing is he's constructing a lazy proxy. He's adding an event listener, lightweight theme support, lightweight theme. This seems a bit strange. Like, so he's using a lightweight theme child listener in a lazy proxy to wait for these messages, this event, or a message. And then right after it sends a request, hey, give me information about the lightweight themes. And I'm a little skeptical about this setting content. Let's see what he's doing with it. Right. Right, okay, so I think he's making sure that this .content, or like that the content that we're referring to is the top level content. Is this is the .content property so that you have a reference to the top level content or top level global? If so, I think we can maybe do better, since lightweight theme child listener will always be reacting to either events or messages, and from those two things we can usually infer the top level global. I'll comment in that file to help illustrate. Yep. So let's see. Make sure that's an issue that's opened, and then we should probably add about welcome there too, because I think about welcome also goes to and when we receive the message, then or let's start with the event first. An event will come up, and we want to make sure that the default view is this.content. Instead of holding a reference to this.content, we can just check that default view. we can just check that default view is the top level documents global. I think you can do that like this. If event dot JS, if event dot original target dot default view. Actually, let me see if I can find him a good example. Where would be a good place? Maybe inside login manager content .jsm default view form owner document .top. How about what I'm looking for is like .top on the document. Win.top. Because I'm pretty sure if you can just, yeah, just do this. Window is not equal window.top. Owner global. Right, okay. Where am I here? Original target dot default view. Let content equal event dot original target dot default view. If content is not equal to content dot top, return. I think that's what you can do. It's like what's window dot top. Sorry, you can't really see the bottom here. Let me drag that up. Window dot top. Yeah. And if you're a subframe, you should go right to the top. So what we're doing here is we're ignoring subframes, which is fine. And if the event type is lightweight theme support, then we send the this.update. And this.update is checking to make sure that the document, this is going to be tricky. Update. So calls to receive message. Content whitelisted. He's getting the top level document to make sure that it matches this, and we had an event here. Now you could pass the content that we defined through update. You could then pass the content variable through here and make content whitelisted a function instead of a getter in order to ensure that the content is pointed at the right document. And then you'd have the reference in here. Now, what about the message case? When you receive a message, what's the best way of getting at your top level content? So let's take a look and see what others do. So in .jsm, there should be some receive message handlers. Sure. No, that's in the parent process. I'm talking about in the content process. Yeah, like here. What else? Blocked site content. Let's look at that. Let's look at content click. And content search. These are good candidates. So that really doesn't do much. Receive message. Blocked site content. The first argument is going to be the globe. What? Let's see how this is used. Blocked site content. Aha. I see. So it's being passed the global. Okay, that's no good. And this one, message.target, and what's target? Content area click, it will be the right. I think I remember this. Receive message. I think that's defined inside WebIDL. Receive message. Target. It's an NSI supports. Hang on. Target. Either the element owning the message manager or message manager itself if no element owns it. So I think we can do like inside JSM, can we see references to .target. Yeah, a message.target.browser.owner.global. I'm thinking message, not event. Message. Target.browser. Content crash handlers. Message.target.message manager. That's in the form validation handler. This might be right. Nope, it is not. Message dot content. What's running in content? Prefs. Child. So presumably this is the message manager is the target. Can we go from the message manager to the top level content window? Because that's what we want. So NSI message manager. Maybe that is a thing. Message manager WebIDL. A message manager. Send async message. That's defined on it. It's a message sender, which it inherits from message listener manager. Message listener manager. Message manager was a weak reference. That's handy. That's really handy. I didn't even know that existed. Add weak message listener? Huh. Good to know. Let's see. What's the best way for me to do this? How about I use the debugger? So I use the browser content toolbox, use the debugger, and let's think of a message. Inside browser child.js, there is a web nav on location change. There should be a receive message somewhere. Navigation, load URI. So I'll set a breakpoint there, and then let's go to like mozilla.org. And we hit our breakpoint. So from here, can I get to in this console, can I get to the top level document? Let's find out. Pretending I'm in a JSM, because right now I should be in the scope that has access to the the content, but I'm ignoring that for now. Pretend I'm in a JSM. So the only thing I really have access to is the message. So what's in the message? I have that, I have the message, I have the target, the content frame message manager. And the content frame message manager, what's inside that? Come on. Wow, bunch of stuff. Content frame message manager. Like, what is it? Default? Is it an owner global? Nothing. Owner document? No. What is part of you? It's this thing that has all these properties on it. It's almost like a DOM window dot content. Ha! Equals content. True. Hey, great. So message.target.content might be enough. I think that is true. Let's see if we can find other examples. Target.content. And browser element child preload. Target and handle detect language. And receive message. Yeah. Here's a great example. Okay, so I think we're on the case here. Target.content. Here, I think you can get at the content global via message.target.content. You're pulling name and data out of the message argument right now. I guess pull target out too. So that will give us, in both cases, when we're receiving messages or when we're handling events, access to the top level content, which means we don't need to stash it on this JSM, which is dangerous because, well, first of all, the JSM is process global. So I think, so I should probably mention that. That's a little problematic. JSMs are process global. That means that if another tab opens in this process, it'll swap in its top level content and break your checks for other tabs that have loaded lightweight theme child listener. For those other tabs that have loaded that already, that have set their content on lightweight theme child listener already. Yeah, there we go. So I feel pretty good about that. So this will need to be refactored a little bit to infer the content from the events or the messages, and we figured out how to do that. Please add, please add a brief doc string above this object defining what it does, what it's responsible for, what it does. It generally does. Also, please add doc strings for each of these properties. Look at browser test utils for an example of the string of the doc formatting that we use. I ask this because this is a new file, and files And the tendency seems to be to always follow the conventions of the file you are in. If we're adding a new file, we should do our best to ensure that the conventions are to document, right? So that's something I like to do. If I'm adding a new file, I'll make sure that it's nicely documented so that further patches, like if I were to not be working on that file and other people were to work on it in the future, they'd like feel compelled, assuming that they want to keep the status quo of how things operate in that file, to continue to add documentation. And that's a useful thing. Please add an MPL2 license header to this file. And then that file is reviewed. And I feel good about this and say that that's reviewed. And then we have this content theme thing. I think that's the other thing. This is like the middle layer that's like the privileged JavaScript running in between the parent process and the content. That's this content, and that's this JSM here. And then content theme is going to be the stuff that's loaded into all of the pages that want to make use of the content theming, like activity stream. And its job is to send events to the parent and map the theming stuff to actual CSS variables, I believe. Content theme controller. So it's listening for the lightweight theme set event. It's asking for support whenever it's initialized. And then we ask for a lightweight theme update. Okay. So if the event is update, right, from the JSM, then we update our data. Gotcha. Here we're setting properties or removing the properties that the value doesn't exist. This is similar in that, similar to the lightweight theme content.jsm. Since we're creating a new file, let's get it started on the right foot and document where possible. Can you please add doc strings for each function and the content theme controller class, and also add a doc string at the top describing what this file should be used for and how to use it, in case we want more pages to use content theme.js. Great. And then setting the properties, it's going to go through the in-content variable map, which is this thing. That's mapping these lightweight theme properties that we support into CSS variables. And if there's a color processing step, it'll do that. Element set attribute, new tab true. Okay. So no matter what, anything that loads this script in content will eventually have these, if it's one of those about pages, is going to have these variables set on it. Okay. And then we initialize. Okay, that seems okay. Implement the colors, entropy background, colors, entropy text properties. Okay, that's pretty accurate. Reviewed that. Yep, he added this list. That's fine. Okay, I feel pretty confident that I gave some useful information here. So, in summary, thanks, and Tim. This is looking great. I have a few more suggestions, but this is looking pretty far along. Mostly what I'm asking for is documentation and some minor changes to how we refer to content. Right. And publish. Once the autosave is done. Jen's 10 asks, is it just me or is he speaking too quiet? Am I really quiet? I apologize. Let me just turn up the gain here a little bit. How's this? Is this better? Better? Check, 1, 2, 3. Is that better? Jen's 10. Can you hear me? Check, check. Is the speaking loud enough now? And out of curiosity, I'm now going to look and see what he's doing for the activity stream changes. Whoa, okay. Yeah, all right. He must have done some kind of build. Oh, Alphonse says, no, this is way worse. Did I turn up the gain too much? How about now? How about now? Sorry, can't make everyone happy. I've turned the gain back to where it was. Oh, Jen's 10. Another thing is I might have started to mumble. That's the other thing that might have happened. I might have been getting quieter and quieter. One of the things I forget to do, especially when I'm like reviewing code, is to speak out, because like I'll be off in space and I'll just start getting quieter and quieter. That sort of thing. All right, so that's done. I'm pretty sure I posted my review here. And I think that's all I want to do today. I think that's all my brain can handle without having had lunch. So I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to cap the stream. Hey, thank you so much for watching episode 143. I hope that was okay. There was a little foul up. I got started a little bit late, but we did some code review, and I think that was useful. Didn't get to review this last thing. I'll do it on my own. But if you're curious, you can follow along whenever I post it in the bug. Let me know what you thought of this episode. If there were stream quality issues, maybe the volumes weren't right or something, do let me know. Just there's a link in the agenda to rate the episode, and I read everything that comes in, and I'll happy to read your feedback to make the stream better. Hey, thanks again for watching. I hope this was interesting, and I should see you, if all goes well, next week. So take care of yourselves. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.